The lyrics of Boogie Oogie Oogie for bored Europeans, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World.
Metro League high school football is back.
You take us off to the races. He could go all the way. He could go.
It's the return of Metro League high school football, Friday and Saturday nights on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Makes a stutter step inside, breaks a tackle. He's on the run. He's going to take it all the way. He's going to take it all the way on the sideline.
Exciting Metro League football live on Rainier Avenue Radio. World. It's back.
Women are not an homogenous group.
We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more.
Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
You listen to Rainier Avenue Radio World. I'm Granville Emerson along with my partner, Ronald Pepe King. And we host the show Little Line Sports right here on Rainier Avenue Radio World, where we talk about football, basketball, local sports, national sports, Seahawks, UW, Seattle U Redhawks, Garfield Bulldogs, all that and more right here on Little Line Sports on Rainier Avenue Radio World.
There is no secret why Downbeat Magazine calls this Seattle's most important annual jazz event. The 33rd annual Earshot Jazz Festival hits Seattle stages October with one-of-a-kind live jazz performances and video live streams all the way through November 7th. This year's Earshot Jazz Festival features established masters like Diane Reeves, Chuco Valdez, Dee Daniel, and red-hot young stars like Theo Croker, Emmanuel Wilkins, and Samara Joy, celebrating both Seattle's history and its future in the world of jazz. Earshot teams up with community partners like Langston, the Royal Room, and Rainier Avenue Radio to showcase Seattle's own resident artists. Tickets and more information are available online at earshot.org. That's earshot.org. Once again, Seattle's most important annual jazz event, I believe. Earshot Jazz Festival, hitting stages early October all the way through November 7th. Call for more information.
This is Rainier Avenue Radio World.
Yeah, all right, it's high noon, and this is Seattle Sports Weekly. I'm Mazvita Maraire, and boy, we got a really big show today, and all kinds of stuff. They actually have, I'm kind of excited because we're going to have one of the greatest soccer players, absolutely, in the state of Washington, and you could even say pretty close to professional soccer. Peter Hattrup, definitely SPU legend, but if you know soccer, then you know who Peter Hattrup was and is, I should say, and just how he was the building block to soccer. And so we'll take a little trip down memory lane, and then we'll kind of hear from him. The guy was prolific scorer. We'll kind of get inside the mind of a score. And then, of course, we got Coach Scott Laigo coming in at on the second half hour. Yeah. And my man, Lars Hanson of the Dawg Report. We'll talk a little bit about the brouhaha that is happening. It's rivalry week for Washington and the Huskies in Oregon. So whenever they play, there's always all kind of, stuff that's going on. So I don't know. We'll have Scott break that down, and Scott Laigo break that down, and then we'll also hear from Lars. They'll break that down. We got a couple clips, so we'll talk a little bit about that. But that's in the second half hour, and as I said, the first 30 minutes, we get to talk to a legend. And I will repeat it and repeat it and repeat it because it's worth repeating. If you know Seattle soccer, the history, then you know who Peter Hattrup was. And he's part of this. Back in the day, Seattle was a hotbed, is a hotbed. But the Smetzer Lake City Hawks, Showcrest, and Ballard. So Seattle always had these, clubs that were playing, and then they grew into, Starfire and what have you, and then the Sounders and all of that. But before all of that, LVR was another one. And there's just Seattle is rich in soccer history. And it's always an honor when you get one of those individuals who made an impact. And like I said, we'll talk a little bit about the history, but I also the guy was prolific scorer. Like there's something about a prolific scorer in soccer. Raul Rio Diaz now, Jordan is somewhat, not to take away from that. I mean, he's amazing. But there's certain people that can just put the ball in the back of the net. Ronaldo, if you want to take a look at that. And, Alan Shearer, I go on forever, but there's something about that mindset. And we'll ask him about that. There's something that clicks. I talked to SU coach Pete Fewing about that as well. And there's just something about about that score. Assassin. No holds bar. So, and I got to say this time to bring him on, but there is I'm a U2 fan, and I got some bootleg recording, and they were talking about they were playing somewhere, and they go, "Well, is he a local boy or something?" And they said, "Yes, he is." So with that, I'm going to bring in legend, local boy, and just honored to have Peter Hattrup on the show. Peter, can you hear us?
I hear you fine, Mass. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for showing up. Yeah, sorry, bro. I ain't got no script for you. We're going to be all over just talking soccer. And I was just trying to also, it was a different time, right? I mean, when you played and, and how things have changed. But let's just start with Seattle. We'll kind of go chronologically a little bit, right? Seattle Prep, and then you go to SPU. Take us through that. Why, how, and the experience.
Well, you're right. It was a different animal back then. Those of us that I started playing in 1970, and this was before the Sounders were even here the first time. But when they came in 74, it kind of was an explosion, and everyone got excited about it. But Seattle Prep was just up the hill from me. And so I was a short walk up the hill to go to school there. And, they already had a rich soccer heritage with Eddie Kruger, who went and played for the original Sounders, and Mark Metzger and John Hennessy, and who went to play at Seattle Pacific before me. Kevin Lovejoy went and played at Notre Dame. So it was a good soccer heritage there already. The COIO programs through the Catholic schools kind of had a jump on everybody else. So back then you had O'Day was good. O'Day was always good. Blanchette was really good. Freddie Hamill and Tom Gashard and that group. And I really ended up at Seattle Pacific mostly because I played men's league when I was in high school with a bunch of the guys that had already played at Seattle Pacific, and they had all finished, and they were really the ones that were pushing it. And to the point of when Cliff was a little slow to follow through on recruiting, one of the guys said, "I'm going to call Don Beatty down at Chico," which at the time was SPU's biggest rival. And then Cliff got a hold of that information. The next thing you know, he was over at the house meeting my folks and having chocolate chip cookies. So, it was in some ways a tough choice because guys were getting drafted out of high school, and that was an option. You talk about guys that scored goals. Chance Fry was an absolute goal scoring machine. Jeff Wall at Ballard was a really good player. He got drafted by the Portland Timbers. Timmy Bartrow got drafted, and Bill Crook, all out of my class. And I decided to go the college route, which turned out to be a good idea when the NASL folded a couple years later when I was still in college. But, it was an exciting time for us to play. And the club scene was way different. I just played on my regular Capitol Hill team, and Chance played over on his Lake Hills team, and Bill Crook played in his Kent team. And you just kind of played with your neighborhood guys until you got to college.
And you brought up something which is interesting, and parents and coaches like, wow. So back then you were playing on a men's league team and college, and yet, that could not happen right now. College, well, I guess you could, but that was also an interesting perspective, right? In terms of being a young player playing with men, right?
Yeah, I think that was a big part of my development. I was playing with, I was 17 years old, and I was playing with guys that were 24, 25, playing against some ex-Sounders in the local men's league at the time. We were a ragtag bunch, the Capitol Hill Rats, and we ended up losing in the state challenge cup at the time to Croatia, who went on to win the National Amateur Cup that year, and we lost in penalties. So we had a pretty good group, and we played some good competition, and and it was a different world. I think a lot of times we don't play out of our age group enough growing up. And I think that's the one advantage these academy kids have now, where they get to go out and train with the pros and do things that was just not heard of back then.
Let's go to SPU. Like you said, there's a legend there. The guy you said you had chocolate chip cookies. He was somewhat of a successful coach. Why was he successful? And how was he successful?
Well, I think the biggest thing is force of personality. And I think when you start to get in any high level coaching, you need to have guys that want to play for you. And guys wanted to perform for Cliff. He was charismatic. We were always super prepared. But, I hear now people talk about college and they say, well, college sports, it's a business now. Once you get to college, it's not fun. It's business. That we were the farthest from that. It was business at times, but we had a ton of fun. We went on road trips, and we experienced the culture we were in. We weren't told, no, stay in a hotel, do this, do that, show up. It was, you know what? We're going to see part of this country while we're there. We went to New Orleans. We wandered around Bourbon Street. We went to Anaheim. I jumped on the shuttle and ran over to Disneyland. So we had a blast playing. The guys loved playing for him. The guys loved playing with each other. And back then it was mostly local guys still. Scott Cairns, who started at center midfield in 4 straight national championships and won 3. Some of these guys, it was a great bunch of guys, and, Cliff made it fun. We worked hard, but we got the rewards of working hard.
Yeah. And, you mentioned so many people. Billy the Crook, as they call him.
Robber on defense. Yeah.
We didn't get to Bernie James and all of that stuff. But so after you played at Seattle Pacific, it's really interesting because I don't know if people understand. You got drafted into this new league. What was that like? And then what happened?
Well, it was interesting because I laugh now and I call our group, the guys just a couple of years ahead of me and then a few years after me, the lost generation, because we arrived at our playing prime after the NASL folded and before MLS came along. So, I was drafted by the Tacoma Stars to play indoor. And the funny thing is, Alan Hinton told me he wanted to draft me, and he asked me if I was eligible for the draft. And I had taken a year off school. So I was finishing my junior year, but my class was graduating. And I told him, well, I said, I don't know. Larry Bird got taken after his junior year because his class was graduating. And I said, so I don't know why the rules would be different. And and Alan actually had to present that to the league when they asked about my draft status, and I don't think it happened, and they kind of went, I guess that's okay. So, I went from playing outdoor all my life, and now it was indoor. And the first group I got thrown in was Steve Zungel and Preki and Godfrey Ingram and Gary Heel and Ricky Davis and a seat on the bench for me. So it was a little different.
Hold that thought. I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Let's see if we can pull this off. And D Money, let's just play a minute or two of that, because I was trying to go up and down the internet and see what I could find. Can you play that video? This is the 1987. I just want the audience to get a chance what that was like. MLS championship.
Welcome to Dallas Sidekicks exciting action from the Major Indoor Soccer League. This special telecast is being brought to you in part by Budweiser, the genuine article. Beechwood aged, that clean, crisp taste that makes Budweiser the king of beers. For all you do, this Bud's for you. And by Black Eyed Pea Restaurants, home cooking worth going out for. And by Gallery by Hager, clothes with a fit for the fit.
Just kind of want to give people a chance here, Peter, what the indoor soccer league was like. How do people remember what it was like,
Yeah, it was a strange time. If you look back at the numbers.
More than anything else, this MISL Championship Series has been a series for the fans. The all-time record for
1 second, Peter.
has been broken.
D-Money, just fast forward it anywhere, just so the audience. This was the Tacoma. There you go, just so they can see what.
Remember now, Dallas scored a shorthand goal. Here's Swansky to the middle, runs on, can't run over and keep control, however. He's doing a good job of killing some time along the boards, though. Flicks it up, flicks it around. Smith works on Ingram, and the ball gets to Papaleo.
All right, let's stop there. Peter, I'm sorry that, the audio is all that, but hopefully you can just tell people, like you said, it would go ahead and finish. I cut you short. It was a strange time. And
yeah, I mean, I don't think people understand that are now going to an indoor game or seeing an indoor game, how big it was at the time. The Stars, when I was there, were outdrawing the Sonics. The Kansas City Comets outdrew the Kansas City Kings so badly, they moved to Sacramento. Cleveland was outdrawing the Cavaliers. Baltimore was outdrawing what was then the Washington Bullets. For the final of the championship series that year, they added seats in the Tacoma Dome. There was over 21,000 people there for Game 7. And the guys were making more money playing indoor here than a lot of the guys were making playing outdoor in Europe. It was crazy.
To your point, Tacoma Stars still hold the record for the largest crowd to witness an indoor soccer game, and it was 21,728.
And all of them were really disappointed at the end of that night.
Yeah. But, the Stars were obviously – so there you were, like you said, you were on the bench, which, I mean, that's just all part of sports. But what was that like, the immersion of playing with some, Zongol and some pretty good players, I would say?
Oh, some fantastic players at the time. And, for the most part, they were really good. You hear about guys having problems as young players. I'd say most of the guys there treated us great. It was just a tough team to break into. So that was a little difficult. I was trying really a new sport and playing with guys that were at that sport at that time better than I was.
And then you went to the Seattle Storm. Yeah. I mean, just you can go anywhere you want with this, but so the audience needs to understand you played for the Seattle Storm 88, 89, Portland Timbers 1990, Atlanta Attack. You went back to the indoor. 1991, 94, you went to the Kansas City Attack, which was indoor. San Jose in 93, back to the Sounders in 94, 95. And then when I do not want to miss the 1996, you getting drafted by the Tampa Bay Mutiny and what that has to do with the landscape of soccer. So, You can even start there if you want, but you know.
Well, at the time we really jumped around. It was, if you wanted to make a living in the game for a while, the way to do it was play both indoor and outdoor. So, there was the years that it was, I'd pack up the car and drive back to wherever I was playing in the Midwest or the South in Atlanta and play over the winter. And then summer it's time to come back and play outdoors here in Seattle or in Portland. The landscape changed a little bit, and a bunch of they changed the front office in Seattle, and a few of us ended up, Billy Crook, myself, Tim Bartrow, Dick McCormick was already down there. We all went down to play in Portland because we weren't really happy with the way they treated the Seattle guys, including Coach Fewing and Eddie Henderson and some of the guys.
Yeah,
they offered some guys from Portland, who we used to never lose to, by the way.
Just put that out there.
Yeah, we never used to lose to Portland. A fair amount more money than they were offering the guys that had won. I mean, in '88, we were probably the best team in the country. We went 12-2. We won the final 5-0 against San Jose, who had Thomas Boy, who only 2 years earlier was the captain of the Mexican national team in the World Cup. But it was just bouncing around from one place to another to make a living. And luckily at the time, I guess I wasn't married, so I didn't have to try and convince somebody that we should pack up and move every 6 months. But the good part of it was the guys were all playing for the love of the game. No one was getting rich. No one thought, well, I'm going to do this as long as I can. And where's the next stop where I can make it happen? Coming back here in '94 when Alan Hinton brought back the Sounders was a great thing for all of us. We had two fantastic years as a team. And that was before MLS. And, a lot of the guys that were playing in the league went on to become players in MLS. Some of them all-stars right away. And then '96 came, and I had a right of first refusal contract. I was always lucky enough that I had an attorney for a dad. So I figured out ways to give myself escape routes when I needed them. And where some of the guys, Marcus Hanneman and those guys, were stuck here because they had an option year that was a club option, I had a right of first refusal. So Seattle could have kept me, but they would have had to pay a lot more money. So
what you do? Hey, Dad. I'm sorry. So what did you do? Hey, Dad, in between dinner, can you pass the salt? And what do you think about this?
Well, he helped me negotiate my first contract.
Okay.
And by help, I mean, did all the work.
Yeah.
Including, he did some things that I'd never seen done before on regular basis. Like getting a credit card offer in the mail, crossing out the terms, writing his own interest rate and sending it back in. And somebody goes, "You can't do that." And he goes, "Sure I can. They don't want it. They won't give it to me. They want to give it to me at this rate. I'll take it. I don't need another credit card." So, he wanted to cross out a whole section when we were negotiating with John Best. And he said, "Well, he goes, "I've practiced law now for 35 years and I don't understand what this clause even means." And John Best said, "Well, I don't either." And he goes, "Well, there's no point having it in." He crossed it out and signaled, and off we went. So I learned early on that the contract is just a starting point, and you can kind of ask for what you want. And by that point, the rumors of MLS coming along were there. So I at least wanted to have some freedom if it was available.
What great foresight. So Tampa Bay comes knocking, right?
Yeah, and it was fantastic. It's not the league it is now, but for those of us that have been through the outdoor soccer wilderness trying to make a living here, it was a great thing. The day I flew into Tampa, they picked me up, and then we walked over to international flights and picked up Carlos Valderrama. So, here you are as somebody that's just a little bit new to this, but I was, not young, but now you're riding in the car with a 2-time South American Player of the Year and the captain of the Colombian national team. So preseason was unbelievable. I was having a fantastic time playing with Carlos, playing with Martin Vasquez, Roy Lasser up front. Stevie Ralston was a young rookie that was really tearing it up out wide. And then in an optional training session that I didn't even have to go to, a day before the first ever MLS game and a week before our first game, the goalie collided with me and I tore my ACL and missed the season. So it was the best of times and it was the worst of times.
Yeah. I just want to represent something. When you're with the Sounders, going back, you had 11 goals, 8 assists, and 30 points as you led the Sounders to victory over the Atlanta Records in the championship series. And Peter, how does one become a scorer? I mean, that mindset. When did that start? And we'll pick up and how you overcame the injuries and moved around. But I did promise the audience that's listening, because that's the thing about you. How does one become a prolific scorer?
I think it's a both nature and nurture. I mean, I started scoring goals for real when I was probably 8. And it's funny because the first when I started playing soccer, I played left back, and no one will believe this that wasn't back at the time, but we played 2 defenders, 3 midfielders, and 5 forwards. And at 6 and 7 years of age, we were playing on a full-size field. Yeah, running around like idiots. And then when I was in my 3rd year, they put me at left wing. And it's funny because I know how many goals I scored that year. And I scored 29 goals.
Wow.
And I laugh and I go, how could I score that much? I couldn't have been very good. And the season wasn't that long. And then I thought about it. And what most coaches did back then is they put their 5 fastest, best kids up front. And then the 2 slow, no good kids were in the back. That's where I was the first couple of years. And then the other kid that they didn't know what to do with went in a goal. So in reality, I probably should have scored every time I touched the ball, because there's not much to defend us. But, at that point, I always had a desire to score. I always enjoyed setting up goals as well, which, and I don't know where I got that from, but maybe from playing basketball as well. I enjoyed, the good pass as much as the good shot, but and then once you get a taste of it, I think it's like a lot of things. You just want more. You score, we all have a little bit of an ego, and when you score, you draw attention, and people are happy with you, and so, it's one of those ways you can help your team and help yourself at the same time.
Yeah, and I didn't tell you this, but the audience is, this is a 2-part series, because we're gonna have Peter here, and then we're gonna bring in the coach, and not today, but Pete Fewey, and because he's got some stories about all y'all and just that camaraderie and the fun of that. But yeah, and in terms of, like you said, you need both, don't you? I mean, you got to love seeing the ball go behind the keeper, but there's something about whether it's you that does that. Now, that's what you would like, but there's also something about if somebody else does it, the ball still goes past the keeper, right? I mean, you got to be both.
Right. And to be fair, I think there's guys that are so driven to score that, and I think I've played with a few of them, unfortunately, that if they score a hat trick and you lose 4-3, they're okay. And then there's guys that, all right, if we win 3-0 and I'm not involved in any of the games or any of the goals, I'm okay. I'm not happy probably. I'm happy with the result, but you still have that desire to get on the score sheet one way or another, whether you're setting up the goal, being involved at some point in the game, but you still walk off going, I wish I would have scored. And I think that's a mindset that's hard, to be happy with your team result, but not always happy with your individual result.
Which is not a bad thing, right? Like, because that's a striker mentality, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's you should want to have individual success as well as team success. Now, if you're taking the individual success ahead of team success, that's a problem. But the best of them figure out a way to put the two together.
Yeah, I should have. We've got a couple more minutes, and I apologize because we should have just done the whole 60 minutes. So if I'm going to put you on the spot that we're going to invite you back. So please come back. Usually you save that when the guys are leaving the show, but we're definitely going to have to invite you back. Tampa Bay Mutiny, because I do want to get to what you're doing now and all those things. So there was a Dallas Burn, Sounders, Milwaukee Wave, and then you came back to the Sounders. If you could take us just the final of your playing career.
Yeah, well, so it's almost been 25 years now.
Yeah,
25 years this month to when I was rehabbing my knee, and I was okay to play by the very end of the season. I was actually cleared medically, I think maybe 5 months after surgery. But I wasn't game sharp yet. So I went to play as a guest for the Dallas Burn in an exhibition game against El Salvador's national team while they were preparing for the World Cup qualifiers. Then there's a few of us that were guest players. Tony Senna, that played for the national team for quite a while. Robert Warzia, who played for Columbus Crew and then was coach there for a while. But we all flew in the night before the game, or the day before the game, trained once, and then they sent us out to play. And it was my first active game since I hurt my knee. It was 7 months the day after surgery.
Wow.
And I set up a goal and scored a goal. And then subsequently, Dallas decided they should trade for me. So I ended up, which, and it's funny because I've talked to the old coach Dave Durr since then, but he traded for me and told me he wanted me to play up front or as an attacking midfielder, which was great. And then when I got there, he put me out wide in a 3-5-2, and I was 33 years old, coming off reconstructive knee surgery, and asking me to run up and down the field against guys like Kobe Jones and Chris Henderson and Steve Ralston. Yeah, that wasn't the best idea. So that didn't work out. I ended up coming back to Seattle partway through that season. And then subsequently went and played indoor in Milwaukee in the winters, and then back here in the summer with the Sounders, finishing up as Bernie's player assistant in 2001. And then since then it was 17 years coaching at Crossfire with Bernie. And then the last couple, I've moved out to a Valor Soccer Club out here in Maple Valley, Covington area.
And what's your role there? Yeah, let's give probably got about D-Money. We're gonna go over a little bit here. We're gonna just make sure a couple more minutes, and then we'll go out. But yeah, what's happening in Maple Valley? What are you doing there? And who is Valor Soccer?
Yeah, it's a relatively new club. It's only 3 years old. It's the combination of a former Maple Valley United, which was here for a long time, and Kent United. So they combined and became Valor. I moved out here. We bought a house out here about the first year they were started, and then it started to make a lot more sense for me to coach 5 miles from home instead of 35 miles from home, including the traffic. So I'm just coaching teams. I was a coaching director and a technical director at times with Crossfire, but I'm enjoying just coaching the kids. I do some finishing clinics for the whole club, but just spending time just on the field with the kids and really enjoying that.
Full circle. How incredible. How incredible. And that's not too many people get to go full circle in a game that they love. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I had a lot of incentive to try hard. I wasn't the best athlete in my own house. My older brother was just inducted into the U.S. Ski Hall of Fame. And so I was chasing him around on the soccer field and everything else. And then a few years back now, I had to come to the realization that I'm not the best soccer player in my own house anymore. When my stepdaughter and stepson got better and older, it's like, I better just stick with the old men now.
Hey man, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure and an honor to have you spend some time. As I said, there's just so much to unpack. We didn't even talk about Smetzer and the Sounders. So, maybe we'll like I said, we'll love to have you back, and we can chop it up and talk soccer some more. I mean, lastly, the World Cup. Here's Seattle's on the so exciting time.
We didn't even get to the Ducks and the Huskies, and they say I've got memories of raking leaves in front of the Montlake House, listening to Mark Lee return a punt in 1979 to beat the Ducks. So, and then hearing the crowd from the stadium because it was not that far from the house. So, there's a lot of Seattle sports history that I've lived through.
Yeah, well, we're gonna come back and hear some more of it. I'm gonna try to get on your calendar. Peter, thanks a lot for your time. And he is a local boy and he is a legend. And what would you expect legends to do? He's now giving back, and that's the true legend right there. So, Peter Hattrup, SPU. I could keep going on. Seattle Sounders, but now Valo Soccer in Maple Valley. So you can look that up. And if your kid or somebody needs a little coaching, look them up. Valo Soccer in Maple Valley. Thanks a lot, Peter. I'm Mazvita Maraire for Seattle Sports Weekly. We're going to go on break and we'll come back.
Rainier Avenue Radio.
If you or a family member are 55 or over and need nursing home level care, but want to keep living where you are, check out Providence Elder Place PACE. This program offers healthcare, housing, transportation, and recreational activities. There are no co-pays or deductibles, and it's covered through Medicare and Medicaid. Providence Elder Place PACE works to keep you healthy and in your home. Call 206-320-5325 or visit providence.org Elder Place. Providence.org Elder Place.
This is Monique Lee from the Afternoons with Monique show. I'm also the owner of Seattle Love Broker, a relationship consulting and matchmaking company. Tune in every Thursday afternoon at 1 p.m. to listen to intriguing, informative, and entertaining guests share stories of their past and vision for the future of our community.
Hello, listener. What's important to you about what's going on in your community? Are you interested? Are you concerned? In any case, I invite you to tune into my show, Seattle Here and Now, on Rainier Avenue Radio World. Why? I will be covering a wide range of topics important to you and impacting the community. Each show will have a special guest or guests to share with you information on a variety of subjects that are happening here and now in Seattle. I promise I will work hard to make my show informative, interesting, and entertaining. Be sure to listen to Seattle Here and Now on Rainier Avenue Radio World. November is American Indian Heritage Month, so please join Rainier Avenue Radio World to celebrate all month long the history, the contributions, and the accomplishments of our first Americans. Again, please stay tuned to Rainier Avenue Radio World to celebrate and honor American Indians during American Indian Heritage Month.
Oh, yes, it's ladies' night.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not trying out new wigs and cocktail dresses, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio World.
All right, we are back. Seattle Sports Weekly. And I'm Mazvita Maraire, your host on Rainier Avenue Radio World. And I got those two knuckleheads coming in, Scott Laigo and Lars Hanson. But hey, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to let you know. I enjoyed that segment probably more than anybody else. So I love me some soccer. And when you can get somebody that can take you from day one, you know what I mean? It's just incredible. Yeah. Good. Thanks for the shout out, Damon. That's Damon Jones, and we gotta get him on Metro Sports Weekly. And Damon is he's one of our ad supporters, adamant supporters, along with Mike Banks. But Mike Banks has always got a Ballard kind of skew to the show. But Damon, that man was a heck of a football player, Roosevelt back in the day. But he's kind of like Peter, one of those guys that did sports and then went on to do other stuff. And that was just kind of, just a little bit of who he was. But he was just a worldly kind of guy, loved chopping it up. And and actually, I was shouted out. But his family took me in. Not that I was desolate, but when you're a Zimbabwean kid going to high school and stuff. So it's one of those places he went, you know what I mean, in high school. So shout out to Damon, Mike Banks. And we got to start rotating some of those people back in again. So that, there you go. I can't wait to get Peter back on and Scott Fewing as well. Peter Fewing. I don't know where Scott comes from. Peter Fewing from SU. These guys are legend. They built the house that the Sounders on, and they didn't even talk about the relationship with Brian Smetzer and all that. But so another time, another day is there's never enough time, so you do what you can. But D Money, any of those guys here, Lars, Hanson, and good Lord, here they are, here they go. They're ready too. I'm just gonna turn on the mic and let them go because first of all, Scott, about you trying to flash on me in soccer? Man, hold up. Lars, you were on the text. And then I realized, look, so Scott, I'm telling him Peter Hattrup, and of course Scott's like, oh, I know him. And Scott texts me a couple other legends that he knows. And now we got the whole chat room going on, right, about who played what. And then it dawned on me, when you're connected with O'Day, they were so prolific that soccer was part of the gig, right, Scott?
Absolutely. It was, tryouts were tough. Let's put it that way. In fact, my senior year in high school, this is a true story, we were so loaded on the varsity, and there were not so many teams in the Metro League. They allowed us to have a second varsity team, which I was a part of. And that team, our varsity, did not want to play us because they knew we'd probably take them out. So we got. But the best part, we had no skin in the game. Like, we couldn't make the playoffs because we were the second varsity from day in the league. So we just went out and were literally, as the old Tulsa Roughnecks. We were the O'Day Roughnecks. We had nothing to lose, man. We just go for it, just have a blast. But that's how many good soccer players were at O'Day at that time. I mean,
let me tell you something. About the world. If you listen, you just find out new things every day. So you played soccer?
Oh yeah. Very much so. I was actually a pretty good soccer player in my day. Yeah. Went against Peter's team. That would be St. Joe's, and they were literally, their uniforms were Argentinas. They had the light blue and white, and they were intimidating. And Mark Henderson and their brother, I can't think of the
Chris,
the older brother, who was our coach, their coach. When I was at O'Day, I was on the JV team. He used to make us run from O'Day all the way down to Montlake to practice, and we'd run home. There was no bus. He says, if you want to play soccer, you got to be in shape. We were like, in shape? Let's get a bus and take us home at least. Nope. We had to run to practice, run back, and so because if you go up to O'Day, everybody kind of. The funny thing about O'Day is that when I take people by, they are always mystified when they see the place. They're like, well, where's the football field? We don't have one. Where's the track and field? You guys win state title. We don't have one. You guys win baseball championships. We don't have one. I mean, we don't got them. We got to go find them. So when I coached at O'Day, my first years there, I actually was the bus driver, which we won't go over those legalities. I probably broke a lot of laws, but we were practicing out of Lake City Way. And honest to God, true story, the Lake City soccer program came out one day and wanted to fight us for the field time. And Coach Kohler from O'Day kind of basically said, well, we're in helmets and shoulder pads, and you're in shin pads. I'm not sure how well this fight's going to work. but we'll get off the field. So off the field, and we ended up having to find another field for the rest of the year.
You couldn't, but fair enough. But Lake City Hawks were no joke, right? As you know, yeah. Lars, the thing about Lake City Hawks is it's Coach is absolutely right, but Lake City Hawks actually Walter Smetzer helped start that here in terms of the and that's the players that came out of the Lake City Hawks, machine, like. Which rival those that we better stop because we can go to text message all day. But there were pockets of soccer communities, and to Coach's point, I want to bring this up. When the Lake City Hawks started playing, you heard that, man. You know what? Walter had them practice for a week without touching the ball. Those guys, it was.
We've got some legendary teams and some legendary coaches out here, and it's. It's why soccer is as good as it is out here, which is great.
Yeah, I didn't know, Coach. I didn't know. This is great. But I would have had you come on. So fantastic. But let's talk about the other football. And I'm going to do this because D-Money, let's play the Jimmy Lake cut. And I'm going to let Lars, you can start afterwards, right? As we come out, I'm going to let you just kind of impressions and you and Coach take it away. And let's play the Jimmy cut. I think it's about 2 minutes rivalry here. Do we have it? Did I send it to you?
Good morning. So just recap of the game last Saturday night. It's just been a joy to watch our team just scrap and fight all the way to the end, and for us to be able to secure a victory, back-to-back road games, 2 tough environments. Just extremely happy for our guys. They put a lot of work in. We always talk about we've had some really good practices, and we just need to see some results, and we've seen some results the last couple of weeks. Injury update, Ryan Bowman suffered an arm injury versus U of A, and he'll be unfortunately out for the rest of the season. Yes. Yeah. The first thing I'll say is really address it a lot like we did last week in terms of knowing the type of opponent that we're facing. And since the Pac-12 has split up in the North and South, the 3 representatives of the North in the championship game have been Oregon, Stanford, and Washington. And so the facts are clear that those are the heavyweights of the Pac-12 North. And I made sure our guys knew that going into our game last week, and our guys know that going into the game this week. And they also know the magnitude of the proximity of our 2 schools and the history of why this is a rivalry. But I think first and foremost, it's a team that has represented the Pac-12 North and won the Pac-12 championship, just like last week, Stanford. And so we know we're playing a quality opponent this Saturday.
How would you compare the rivalries with Oregon and with Washington State? Obviously, a lot of history with both schools, but it maybe feels like there's a distinct vibe to each of those.
Mm-hmm. I think, with the Apple Cup, I think we all know that people growing up in this state or from this state, you're one side or the other. So I think you see households are, split up. Mom could be a Coug, the dad could be a Husky, and it's obviously a heated rivalry there. I think this rivalry is more has been about championships and teams that are the team. Usually the winner is going to represent the Pac-12 North, or they're hunting for a Pac-12 championship. It's just been more on a higher level in terms of a lot of things are at stake in that way. And so you look at the 2, especially in the recent years, representatives in the college football playoff. Oregon obviously was there, and the University of Washington was there. And so just that alone, I think, has made this rivalry just more of a it's a little bit more heated, I think, just because the championships that we're going after. I think that is way more pumped up than it is. Our battles are really, the schools that we go against are way more have academic prowess, like the University of Washington, Notre Dame, Stanford, USC. We go with a lot of battles toe to toe all the way to the end with those schools. And so I think that's made up a lot and pumped up in your world. In our world, we battle more academically prowess teams.
How's your world, Lars?
That wasn't my question, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, the subtlety that Lake was making was, it's more tongue in cheek than actual truth, because yes, UW does recruit against Notre Dame and Stanford and USC, but also Oregon and also Oregon State of late, and also even Arizona for some reason of late. Oregon is recruiting against Georgia, Alabama, the national powers. They're not even in the same real realm in terms of recruiting in that respect. So it was a natural dig for rivalry week, but it was kind of a weird way to go about it. I mean, I enjoyed it. I kind of liked it, but I did think it was a little intriguing because it was disingenuous, if we're being honest here. Yes, UW is more academically prestigious than Oregon. Okay, everyone knows that. That's not a secret. It's more academically prowess than Washington State. What he's making the distinction with Oregon is these games have been mad more because we are the only really good teams in the conference. Washington State's not even really that good, and that's just true. So on that part, he's correct, but on the recruiting part, is a little suspect.
Scott?
Well, I'm going to preface this thing from my historical perspective. So I can't even do the math. I'm not that smart. I went to O'Day, but in 93 or 92 when I was coaching for the Huskies, and 93 actually, and we were down there in Oregon, and they infamously still play the tape, the Kenny Wheaton interception goal line. I was at that game, so this is a deep-rooted. Probably I need to see some professional help for this moment in my life, because I got called a lot of illegitimate names as I was walking off the field that day. And true story, I had to get the halftime stats at halftime, and I had to climb over the fence because they wouldn't let me out. Pants ripped, so I had to wear a sweater the rest of the game. True story. But long story short, so I'm really deeply troubled with the Oregon-Washington rivalry. You just can't do what Blake did, and I appreciate where he's come from. I watched his demeanor, I watched his body language, a lot really what he was saying, trying to say. I understand the conveying, but boy, I'm telling you right now, all that stuff is up on a wall down in Eugene, and they walk by it every day. And I think that the president of Eugene kind of rhetorically came back pretty heavily and basically said, "Well, if you let the dogs out, it's okay with me." Lars?
Well, don't sell short that Michael Show quote. Who did he name in that quote? Maz,
Yeah.
You're going to enjoy this.
Yeah, he mentions Coach Peterson.
Yeah, and my take is the Pac-12 should admonish the president of the University of Oregon for getting into this. I thought he was out of line. I absolutely think he was out of line, because it's you guys. I'm going to say it. I don't like the dynamics. I don't like the white, black, white. I don't. You don't have to speak to it, but I didn't. It's funny. I've been taking my own kind of, me and Percy Allen and Kim Reynolds went to the UW B-ball. Where you at, Lars? But anyways, yesterday, we're kind of saying, and everybody has their own take. But the reason is I thought it was excessive on his part, the power to power. The AD should have came out and said something. I think the president shouldn't have said that. And I'll let you guys go. But I also think that's why I played the whole thing. Lake actually gave credit to Oregon about the last two teams and all of that. But it was just that clip. But it's I'll leave it alone. It's Twitter, and Twitter, it does what Twitter does.
Yeah.
I will say this, to your point, Maz, that does speak to the institutional hierarchy differences between the University of Washington and the University of Oregon, and even to an extent the University of Washington State University. Kirk Schultz, very involved in athletics. Pat Chung, very involved. Regardless of what the situation is, those two guys are in lockstep. Michael Schill, and that's a top-down organization. Washington, it's kind of like, who's really running the show? Jimmy can say whatever he wants. Jen's not going to say anything. Costa is not going to say anything. I mean, I'm just being honest here. Jimmy's the head coach at the University of Washington is the spokesperson for the University of Washington because of the way the dynamics were set up.
Yeah, Scott, can you speak to that? That's awesome. I mean, we got power in the. I mean, even you don't have to, but yeah, I mean, you're the greatest person that can let us in, give us some insight on that.
Well, I just think, I mean, Lars hit it right on the nose. I mean, that's exactly how that whole hierarchy works there.
Yeah.
Which is a lot different from what we're used to having. You know, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, if we're being truthful and honest to the whole process, even Coach Lake's situation presently with keep trying to stay above the water. Is Jen trying to stay above the water? Is she, you know, trying to do these things and make sure that she doesn't ruffle the feathers up above, you know, that. I know you're shaking your head, Lars, but I'm asking the question. I don't know what it is, but I think that there's, you know, got to be some feeling in the back of her head and the mind, like, you know, Mike Hopkins is exactly, you know, knocked it out of the ballpark for basketball, and Jimmy's having a struggle right now. You know, and you know, and don't get me wrong, I get irritated with coaches being fired in the middle of the season. I think it's ridiculous. You know, and it's really bad for the game, personally, I think. But having said that, it's an interesting piece. I do agree with you, Mark, with both of you in both positions. One from Lars's comments about it. Miles, I do. I mean, thinking more about it, yeah, you're right. I mean, the presidents, when they step in, it's a different deal. It's a different deal when they step in. It's different from when, you know, from one barb to the other. Unfortunately, I know the assistant head coach, special teams coordinator down in Texas, who got himself into a lot of trouble this week with a monkey issue. And so, you
Nothing
know,
wrong with that.
Well, but my point is,
I'm going to put myself on mute. Go ahead.
But you know what I mean? It just, you know, you get yourself in these, and so the Twitter world and the fans can go the barb. I understand that within 200 miles near Ames, Iowa, you cannot find a monkey suit. So, you know, live with that, what you may, and stuff like that. So it's an interesting piece, but when presidents get involved, you're right. It goes to a different level. It is at a different level. But it will be very interesting to see this Saturday what goes on, because I think if they get a chance and they can parry it, everybody doesn't soon forget that the Huskies won 70-12 a bunch of years ago, and somebody would like to do it on their field, do the exact same thing. So I'd be nervous.
So, Lars, you ain't got nothing to say? Off air, you will talk for 3 hours about this. Now you got nothing to say that the mic's on?
No, I mean, I'm just saying in the sense that, I mean, he's absolutely right. I mean, I'm going to leave Jeff Banks aside because I think he's going to be the next head coach of Washington State, and I don't want to ruin any opportunities of him clearing the air when he gets back into the state. That being said, yeah, I mean, and Maz, you're absolutely right. There is a weird the power dynamic. You shouldn't be talking down. You should kind of don't punch down, don't punch down, punch at your weight. But why? So the question is, why is Jimmy Lake the one that has to say it? Because Michael Schill really, I mean, again, we play devil's advocate. Why did Michael Schill feel the need to respond? Well, because Jimmy Lake is basically the president of Washington. So it's you know, Rob Mullins isn't going to come out and say, oh, Jimmy Lake's the you know what, and Mario Cristobal is not even going to waste his time with it. And I mean, I'm really looking forward to that handshake at midfield before the game, just to kind of see how the Feathers are doing before kickoff, and then how they're doing after the game, because those are going to be two interesting handshakes.
Go ahead, Scott.
He did use the pun feathers, so that will be interesting. You know,
right?
He's trying to infer a few things. The feathers,
I think,
there's for sure.
I'm sorry, Scott. Restate you. I talked all over you. Go ahead.
I just said it's funny how Lars brought up the feathers when, you know, we're talking about the Ducks coming to town. So it will be interesting. You're absolutely right, Lars. It'll be very interesting. All aspects of this whole thing will be coming down, and you know, and to kind of go back to the real point, which is my concern as a Husky fan. I mean, recruiting is a big issue, and for you to kind of go down that route from that perspective when you're 8th in the league and they're 8th in the country. To Lars' point, you are recruiting against the Alabamas.
And I'm going to actually run with that point, and we're going to tie it in. Maz. So what Jimmy Lake was asked about today, I don't know if either of you saw it, Montlake Futures, an NIL initiative for the University of Washington, heavily involved with Chris Peterson, who basically is a lifetime ambassador for that. That does not, there's a way to read that where he's very involved in the genesis and the creation and making sure that athletes are involved. Why is he doing that? Why is he positioning himself in this specific way?
and really. See, that's the thing with the Dawg Report. You're always trying to inflame things. Two things. A, I don't think that, the rivalry game and all of that is fine. Scott, you know that. Coaches, there's a certain respect that coaches have. We get the up here, they're going to shake hands, and they might even laugh about it because the idea is high performance, and we're going to try to beat you because Washington's, the first time they beat Oregon was 2017, right? They've lost the last two, but only 7 points. So they get that. And so why are we focusing on the point about recruiting when actually Lake just gave a great compliment about, look, there's two teams that are relevant, us and them. But that's forgotten, and that's fine. I'm not there. And then lastly, to your point about that was Chris Peterson's job. That's exactly what he went out of coaching to do, business school, and create those opportunities. See, dude, you be coming up the Dawg Report, Lars, Hanson. I always got something to say, but you know what? Time is up. I'll give you guys each about 10, 15 seconds before we go as we wrap up. What do what's your overall take on this?
Go ahead, Lars.
Saturday or
I'll make it simple. Washington's going to cover the spread. I don't know if they'll win, but it's going to be a one-possession game. I think it actually is going to be closer than people think. Oregon's not that great. Washington has a chance to be good, but they haven't played up to it. I think it's going to be a pretty good game. It's going to be low scoring, both under 30. It's going to be a defensive game. Probably defensive way is going to win the game.
Wow, interesting. I for a bigger picture of the whole thing, with Oregon being in the top 4 for the playoff, I find that an interesting piece. I mean, I don't know if that's the dessert. That's a whole nother show we could do. But it'll be interesting to see if they come in a little bit with their heads a little wider, bigger, things like that. Can Chris do that? It may be the Cristobal talk down in Miami is maybe going down because Manny Diaz has maybe saved the boat. So maybe Mario's not looking out to get out the door and roll out of here too. It'll be interesting all the way around. I think that, and for Coach Lake, he kind of drew a line in the sand. We'll have to figure it out real fast. And we'll find out how tough that team is when they come out on Saturday.
Of course we will. I'll be more definitive. The Huskies beat the Ducks. I've said it all season just because of the way the universe of college sports works. I really do. I just think that for everything you said, I'm flipping the script. Take the Dogs on this one. All right. We are done. I am Mazvita Maraire for Seattle Sports Weekly. To my right, Lars Hanson, the Dawg Report. To my left, or down below, we should be on top, is Coach Scott Laigo of Student Athlete Advocates. Thank you guys so much for your time. I really appreciate you. And we got to go. And everybody listening and watching, appreciate you too. Take the Dogs. Take the 10. Bye. We out.
You're listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.